Today, I am joined by Kelly Chase, and we are talking about the power of your story. And not only the power of your story, but how powerful podcasting can be in sharing your story, and how you're able to connect on a deeper level, share from the heart, do all the things, and make everything happen when you are willing to step up, be vulnerable, share your story. It will change your life and your business. Are you ready? Let's go. Welcome to the podcast about podcasting, where you guessed it, we're talking all things podcasting, but not just in the sense of strategy of how to launch, grow, and monetize your show. Of course, you're going to get that, but we're going deep into how podcasting can actually help you build your community, build your confidence, and if you're willing to lean deep into this platform, it can be the ticket to the life of your dreams. Because it'll inspire you to go deeper, to get to know yourself. And as we know, success starts from within. If you are ready to stop being a ripple in this world and bust out your tsunami of change you know you were made for, it's podcasting for your soul. I'm your host, Jen Dragonette, so let's dig in. So welcome to the podcast, Kelly.
Hi, thanks for having me.
I am really excited to have this conversation with you because I want to talk about the power of sharing your story. Because I know that you have a great story that we just talked about on the Feed Your Business with Love podcast, which I will link in the show notes. But I want to talk about how did this sharing your story on your podcast, which we'll talk about your podcast too, how did that really help you go deeper into realizing what it was you truly wanted? And how you can serve a wider audience?
Yeah, no, that's a wonderful question. I have a lot of guests on my podcast, and I think I've always been in this headspace of, I want to have a talk show. So we're starting with a podcast, right? And learning people's stories has been so inspiring. And in turn, being in the coaching space for the last almost 10 years, it's I've learned through my own mentorship, your story is what connects. Your story is what sells your services, programs, products, whatever you have. It is your story that is going to sell for you. And I want to say, I've always led with that. I've always been a pretty big storyteller. I mean, even before a mentorship, I just remember, I went through this weight challenge back in 2014 and 15. And I'm feeling imposter because I'm okay, I'm a health coach, but now I've gained 30 pounds and I'm who's going to want to work with me? I obviously can't figure out my own health right now. So, but it was so empowering and powerful when I shared my story. And it was it was Facebook. It was a Facebook post. And it was just really long. Hey, I went through a breakup. This is what I did. I started Googling bikini competitor bodies and workouts and nutrition and all this stuff and helping people. I just took people through the process. And then I lost weight and then I gained 30 pounds because my body was in a state of fight or flight. My cortisol was all crazy. And the response from me sharing that and me just being vulnerable too. I was leading as a coach, but I was inviting people to go through a program with me because I'm I have to get myself in a good place. So will you come with me and do this? Whoever resonates. And again, I had such a powerful response and people were just wow, you're actually more relatable. You're actually more relatable now. And I think that was one of the most powerful and eye-opening stories that I had shared because I was just so honest and raw and vulnerable. And after that, I want to say I was really over the last handful of years, I have always been really big, talking to my camera. I mean, talking to my phone screen. I'm that person on Instagram that has all the dashes across doing 50 different little Instagram videos a day. But it's because I just have things to say. And granted, I have now transferred that majority over to podcasts because although I have guests on and I'm interviewing them, I think a part of my strategy, I guess, in what I do, I'm always offering a story to relate and resonate with someone to help them feel less alone is what I've realized. Because sometimes I'm not oh, can I share my story? I just go ahead and I'm oh my gosh, me too. And and I just go into a story. Like I said, I feel on the other end, whether it's a client or a podcast guest or a friend even, I just feel they can gain a different perspective from my story. And it's healing for both of us in that moment. So it's just been really powerful. And I know we were talking about this before you started hitting record, like I need to do more solo episodes so that I can share a little bit more of my story. And just, I mean, I've been working with mentors for the last 4.5 years. Like I have a lot of knowledge. I could write so many books right now. I could do so many solo episodes, but that is something that I'm definitely going to lean more into, or sharing even more of my story, maybe on the episodes that I even have the guests and that kind of thing. Because again, it's just so powerful. It's a healing technique. It really is. I mean, the more that you share your story, the more healing you offer yourself, because you're releasing every single time you share parts of you. And then you're giving others permission. Wow, she's doing it. Maybe it's not as scary as I thought it would be to be vulnerable and put myself out there. It is scary the first time. I mean, me hitting submit or post on that Facebook post, I was like, oh God, because I mentioned not the ex-boyfriend's name, but I like said something about, oh yeah, after this breakup and his mom saw the post, like she knew exactly who I was talking about. So it's like, you have to be, without throwing people like under the bus, of course, and you got to protect certain people, but you can do it still in a way that allows you to share and express yourself with impact. So without throwing people under the bus, like I said. So, but it's powerful. You have to do it. You want to just, like I said, heal, but also connect to self and grow your business, grow your relationship. I mean, think about your relationship too. If you're not communicating with your partner, how great is your relationship really? Right?
Right.
You got to take the time. You have to make the time to share and be vulnerable.
I think that you said things that were super important that I want to reiterate, that it helped you with your own journey, and it helps someone else who's struggling in that moment. And those are two things that's why I love podcasting. I truly believe that podcasting saved my life. It did. If I didn't have a podcast, I honestly don't know if I would be here today because of the connections that I created. It's scary, but that piece of, as my friend Colleen says, throwing out the life preserver for someone else with that authentic share.
Yeah.
And I'd love to know, because you're on TikTok, you're an influencer on Instagram, you have been on reality TV shows, you've done all the things. What do you think the most impactful share, other than that post, where has been the most impact that you felt that internal healing?
Good question. As far as like so many things. I mean, granted, like in-person thing, like in-person events, like I was telling you earlier, like I went on a women's retreat these last 4 days and it was just so powerful. I mean, I didn't know these women 10 days ago. I had no idea who any of these women were. And again, I think it's just because I've been so vulnerable for the last years, I've been able to get myself to a place of I can tell anybody my story, like, because I know the worth, I know the power in it. But I think like I also on my Instagram story, I will share a story, whether it's talking to my phone or it's usually in text. Like I'll maybe share pictures with a story behind the pictures, but lead people through a journey. It could have been my weight loss journey. It could have been a love and relationship, a breakup or whatever, or even like financial distress and how I've that or business stuff. Like I feel like that has been really impactful for people because they're able to like actually see the visual and see my facial expressions. I mean, I made a post on Instagram a year ago, I think, there were two pictures and it was like a carousel. And one was like of me in that present time. And then one was a picture of me from 10 years ago, both smiling, both having a great time, all of that. But in my caption, I was like, the girl in the second picture was broken, disconnected, like totally felt rejected and just had no sense of purpose in everything. And I mean, I'm sure I posted that picture 10 years ago and people were like, oh, she looks so happy. And I'm like, wow. And I've had friends of mine come up to me and they're like, oh, sometimes you like share that you like were like, I don't know, it's as if you were like depressed before or something. And I was like, I wasn't depressed. I just didn't even know what I was feeling back then. I'm like, I'm just like, if you thought I was happy even 5 years ago, I am so much happier now because I have found myself. I discovered myself. Like I really didn't even know what I like to do for fun 6 years ago. Now I'm like, I like basketball, I like dancing, I like singing, I like reading. Like I could name out so many things, and it's just been such a beautiful journey. But I wouldn't have gotten to that place if I wasn't communicating with myself, if I wasn't vulnerable with myself, and wasn't allowing myself to be vulnerable with my audiences. Because in that, I mean, I'll receive messages or comments on those types of things. And it's, oh my God, thank you for sharing. Like I'm experiencing that too. And it's even if just one person was like, me too, you've done your job. So it's so powerful. Mm-hmm.
I love that. So on your podcast, again, can you tell us the name of your podcast and a little bit about what your podcast is about?
Yeah, so it's Chase Life with Kelly. It's a play on my name, so Kelly Chase. But Chase Life with Kelly, it is indeed that. It's like, how can you be more intentional with your life? So you're chasing life. You're always on this journey. You're always going to be doing things that are giving you life. That is the intention. The types of guests that I have on my podcast, they range. I mean, I was on a reality TV show, so of course I've had some of my former cast from Love is Blind on there. But I told them to begin, I was like, this is not a Love is Blind podcast. This is not a reality TV show podcast. This is I want to get to know you, the person behind the camera. I want to understand. And I've like one of the girls from season 2, she's huge like mental health advocate because she struggles with her own mental health. And so I wanted to understand her journey in that and how like the tools that she uses. So to give people back or to give back to people. So anywhere from like reality TV to I've had an A-list celebrity on who, I mean, her story was so profound. It was remarkable. She was talking about dissociative identity disorder, and that's how like what ruled her entire 20s until she found some deeper healing. So I would say there's like a component of it's basically the theme is what I said, but also like how people have just taken their like hardships and turned it to gold, how they've taken their messes and turned it into successes, and what their real raw vulnerable story is. I mean, I've had guys on that lost family members or people that had husbands that were addicted to porn or they were addicted to drugs or alcohol and things like that. And like how they've been able to take that rock bottom moments or those rock bottom moments and really excel and turn it into creating impact in other people's lives. And again, through our healing, as we share our story, we're healing and connecting with other people. So I love giving others a platform to be able to do that. And while also what I said, I'm like, then I can resonate. Okay, maybe, yeah, I haven't dealt with addiction, but how maybe did I deal with addiction in a different way? Like different things like that. So it's just been very healing altogether. It's very good.
I was like, for both you and your listeners, I love that you are bringing that. I think that it's part like of what I call the self-love movement. Like we're creating a tsunami of self-love because really learning to go within, heal those stories, hear other people's stories, know that sometimes we like to be the victim. I know this was one of my stories is I like to be the victim. Hey, my stuff is way different than everyone else. Look at me in my raw victimness. And then I realized everyone else was going through the same thing. And I was like a little disappointed at first, to be honest. I was like, oh, but it also empowered me to be like, oh, look, this isn't so unique that I can't come through it.
Totally. Absolutely. That's so true. It's so true. Because I mean, being able to make that connection and have someone be like, oh my God, me too. It does help you feel a lot less alone. And there are times you just feel alone. And granted, I know in this space, like I could say anything and I don't think I now to this day feel alone, but I know that there are times when I'm maybe repressing or suppressing my own self. Because maybe it's like a part of me that doesn't want to be seen in that way. I know that. And that's what I did at the women's retreat this past weekend. We worked through some of that. So, but I'm going to share about that. And wow, I know I haven't been like living up to my fullest potential. With my podcast too, and just who I am as a person and all the work, the self-love work that I've done, I know when I'm not in alignment. I know. Like I'll be talking to someone and they'll be saying whatever. And I'm like, oh yeah, I learned that too. But am I doing it? Am I working through this? Am I actually practicing what I preach? So all of these things help me shift myself and pretty quickly back into like alignment with my purpose and my impact. And just so I'm showing up with integrity and authenticity too. So it's just powerfully healing to do podcasts. I love it.
Like speaking to my heart. I'm like all the podcast healing girl. Like that's my thing is podcast healing and using it as a healing modality, which a lot of people think I'm crazy to go out there. And that's what I teach. That's my business is using podcasting to grow your business, but to heal. Because I'm a self person. I'm like, there is so much you can get from the connections you make on a podcast versus I don't know why it's so different other than like you can do a dual live, things like that. But there's a totally different level on podcasts, I believe.
I agree with you. I totally agree with you. There is. I mean, there's just you feel a lot of times that you're sitting in the room with the people. In my experience anyways, like me listening to other people's podcasts, like I feel like that. Like, wow. I think that's just like what I receive from that. It's, wow, I feel like I'm like sitting on the couch with these people, like I'm a part of the conversation, which is really neat to experience.
Yeah. It's such a cool community that I think that podcasting creates. So if someone were to we're just like getting started, okay, I need to be vulnerable. And would you have them any suggestions for them, whether that's try on a podcast, because at least you can be hidden if you're not ready to go? What would you say to somebody who's like, okay, I'm ready to take that action to start sharing my story?
Yeah. I mean, find whichever platform is going to work best for you. Just do it. Remember, our ego likes to keep us safe. So remember, anytime that fear pops up, it's your ego trying to keep you safe. Your message is more important than that fear. Period. So whatever platform you decide to do, I mean, yes, I say grab a mic. I mean, I'm looking at you and I'm like, wow, she has all this like professional equipment. That's a PSA too. I bought a $20 mic off of Amazon and it has served its purpose. You do not have to have all the bells and whistles. Okay. Nothing is perfect. So all you need is the video or some type of audio to capture your audio and share your story. And just remember, the more vulnerable that you are, the more you're going to connect with someone. I promise.
I love that. And yes. And my studio looks expensive, but let me tell you, this is like budget, 100% budget. So where can people find you if they want to connect?
Yeah. So on Instagram, you can find me at Chase Life with Kelly. And on TikTok, it's I am Kelly Chase. And then you can listen to my podcast. It's Chase Life with Kelly on all streaming platforms. Yeah.
Thank you so much for spending this time with me. And again, I'm going to link your other episode on my other show to this so that if people want to go deeper into your story, how you serve other people, they can really check that out.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.